Your book, congratulations, has been purchased to be made into a film, rights to the book, and by Lionsgate, which is a sign that it might actually happen. That's a really fantastic thing. Right. But as I've read it, as I understand, the screenwriters who are adapting it for the screen are taking a character in the book who's not so significant a character in your telling of the story, but a white local journalist, a woman, and enlarging her importance in the story as a narrative device. But what's your reaction to other writers taking this nonfiction work of yours and adjusting the story to make it more compelling for even larger audiences? I'm sure is the logic. But what do you think about that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You sort of know going into it, especially with a book like this, which is a very dense, complex story, that if you have 90-something minutes to tell this story, there's definitely going to be parts of it that are not covered. So you're going to get the gist of it. And I sort of have to accept that. There's no other way to do that. Maybe it'll bring more people to the book. It probably will, and they'll say, wow, I had no idea that wasn't in the movie or whatever. But I've had conversations with the screenwriters, and they're actually really brilliant. You know, everything I'd heard about Hollywood, like they're going to kill this. And these guys are very smart. I really like the way they're talking. They really want to tell the story of Thurgood Marshall as this larger-than-life character and these young LDF attorneys who come down to Florida, put their lives on the line, and you know, some of them don't make it, in this really, really dramatic case. But their idea is to sort of tell it through, as far as I know at this point, Mabel Norris Reese, who's this interesting reporter. It's this young reporter who starts out basically as Sheriff McCall's mouthpiece, and she is clamoring for justice, and she's saying, you know, their honor will be avenged by the cruelest means necessary, the electric chair. And she's really a champion for this, and she has all these confrontations with Marshall early on and some of the young lawyers. And then after the shooting, when McCall shoots him, she starts to have a change of heart. And what she does is she begins leaking things to the NAACP in the middle of the case. And so it's this change of heart that her and this prosecutor sort of go through. And she says, you know, in her own memoirs and notes that this was largely due to the influence of Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall made an impact on her life on this case, and it sort of changed her perception about race and justice in the South. And she later went on, she was obviously chased out of town by Sheriff McCall, who basically said, they called her Red Mabel. She was a communist, and now she's gone over to the dark side. And basically chased her out of town, ruined her newspaper. But she became a very big civil rights reporter later on. She became friends with Martin Luther King. And she later said it was all because of Thurgood Marshall's influence. And so I think that the filmmakers are sort of looking at that as sort of forming the crux of the story, which I think is really interesting.